Men, in this video I'm going to try something different. I'm going to use the assistance from the legendary Grok 2 from XAI, and I am going to basically run through where the slogan, breakfast is the most important meal of the day, where that frigging came from, and why this should not be embedded in your brain. It is one of the least productive things that you could be thinking on a daily basis. Get rid of it as soon as possible. The slogan, breakfast is the most important meal of the day, was popularised in the mid-20th century, largely through marketing efforts by cereal companies. One of the key figures in promoting this idea was James Caleb Jackson, who invented the first dry breakfast cereal called granola in 1863. However, it was John Harvey Kellogg who, along with his brother Keith Kellogg, significantly pushed the narrative through their Kellogg cereal company in the early 1900s. Kellogg's ran extensive marketing campaigns in the 1920s and 30s to promote breakfast cereals, emphasizing the importance of breakfast. While they did not invent the exact phrase, their marketing efforts greatly contributed to its widespread acceptance. How many times have you used this phrase? Like, it is such a commonly used phrase. The precise origin of the exact slogan may be hard to pinpoint down to a single person, but it was certainly fueled by the health and dietetic movements of the time, combined with strategic marketing by food companies to boost breakfast cereal sales. Now, look at breakfast cereals. They are full of poor quality carbohydrates, high in sugar, and they're fortified with micronutrients just to kind of get them on the shelves so they can, I don't know, say it's got vitamin C in or it's got iron in or something like that. These cereals poison your children. These cereals get your children addicted to sugar. They send them to school with a sugar rush for about an hour, then they're hungry. If you're eating them, get a grip. It's a silly thing to be eating. Should never eat these things. But it's not about that. It's about the reason for this video is about the term breakfast being the most important meal of the day. Now, the most important meal of your day is the one that is before your most important act of the day. Now, let's say, for example, your morning is filled with very high stress, intense problem solving. Then your most important meal of the day may be breakfast, because the amount of responsibility on your shoulders for the 4 or 5 hour period of the morning that follows that meal is of high importance to you. Now, I understand that may be a rare case. However, for most people, if breakfast is the most important meal of the day, then what the hell are you doing after your breakfast? What are you actually doing after your breakfast that is that important? If it's that important, anyway, what I'm trying to say is, it is not that important of a meal. And one thing I'm a massive advocate of, if somebody has a weight loss goal, is actually pushing their breakfast as late into the day as possible. Because let's say, for example, you wake up really early and you're on a calorie deficit. So you have your basic amount of calories that you're supposed to be eating during the day of, let's say, for example, 2,700. You get up at 0600 hours and you have your breakfast at 0630, and your breakfast is 600 calories. You then have another 16-hour period in which you only have just over 2,000 calories to eat. Now, let's be honest. When you wake up, are you actually hungry? Are you actually hungry the moment you open your eyes? Now, I tell you what, when you eat these, very refined carbohydrates, high in sugar, when you eat this type of thing, Kellogg's cereals, you will be hungry 30 to 45 minutes after you've consumed them. So what it does is it gets you into the rabbit hole, gets you into this downward spiral. It's like a rat race. It's like a carbohydrate rat race. Blood sugar up because you've just had the cereal. Blood sugar down, need more cereal. Up, down, up, down, up, down. And it gets you into the loop of this type of thinking, this type of eating. And it's extremely unproductive. Extremely unproductive. So, that said, now that we've established breakfast most certainly isn't the most important meal of the day, for 99.9% of people, what is the most important meal of the day? What do you think the most important meal of the day is? What is your most important meal? And don't fucking dare say breakfast, because the only reason you're saying breakfast is because your mum said it, your nana said it, your uncle says it, everybody, we've been brainwashed into saying this thing. Why? Why is it the most important meal of the day? Why? Why? Why do you say it? It's fucking crazy, isn't it? We've been conditioned socially to say this shit, and it's bollocks, right? It's absolute bollocks. For those of you that don't know me, new to the channel, my name is Paul Green, and I run the Longevity Program, which is a laser-focused strength and conditioning service for men over the age of 40, where we get you out of all this crappy habits and really start layering you long-term, strengthening your joints to start off with, and then we make your joints resilient, and then we start to build in some athleticism. That's the training, the high performance training program, and then that is aligned with the meal plan. It's my job and all the little secret superpowers I have in my arsenal to keep you on them two paths. However, when I get people on day one, week one, and they're eating cereal, 50-year-old man eating cereal first thing on the morning when he gets out of bed and having a cup of coffee, it's just funny. It's just funny because, look, if we've heard this same slogan 100,000 times in our lifetime, we're going to believe it's true. Anyway, with all of that in mind, what is the most important meal of the day? And I say this, if we look, this is a meal plan based off, you know what, let's go on to a different meal plan, because I used this meal plan on my last video. Let's go on to a meal plan here, right? And I want you as I'm reading it out, you've got meal 1, meal 2, meal 3, 4, 5, right? If you are training 3 or 4 times a week, what's going to be your most important meal of the day? And it may seem very, very... You may still be thinking breakfast when I ask you that question. The most important meal of the day is the meal you eat just before you do something very important. Now, if the most important part of your day is training very hard, then the most important meal of the day is what you eat before you train. So that gets me on to, well, what the hell should you eat before you train? Well, that depends entirely on how long your training sessions are. Training sessions on the longevity program are about an hour on average. Some a little bit shorter than an hour, some a little bit more than an hour. That is on the first 12-week block, the fundamentals block. Right, so with that in mind, what should you eat before a 1-hour training session? We have oats and jam. Oats are complex carbohydrates. They take longer to digest. And we've got jam, which is like crushed strawberries, very sweet, which are simple carbohydrates. Complex, simple. Complex serves us to the later parts of the session, and the simple ones serve us at the start of our session. So if you think of our blood sugar levels, this will be digested instantly, like 5, 10, 15 minutes after your training, after you've consumed this. This will be in the bloodstream and it'll be ready to go, ready to enter them muscles whenever required. This takes a little bit longer to digest, so that the release of this into the bloodstream will be a lot slower. But in total, this is about 50 grams of carbohydrates. This will serve you into the back end of your session to maintain high performance, high intensity, throughout the entirety of your session. This high intensity at the start. Now, why am I talking about this? Because this simple meal is the most important meal of this man's meal plan. If he didn't have it, he wouldn't perform to an optimized standard in the gym every single time he trains. Do you understand? Now, where this gets where I give him a bit of freedom with his nutrient timing. Let's say, for example, he trains on a morning. Would he have this before he trains? Or would he have this before he trains? This pre-gym meal will always sit before he trains, and every other meal is after that. The reason for this is protein takes a long time to digest. Doesn't really serve you very well with regards to energy in your sessions, in regards to giving you high performance or giving you the maximum chance at the highest possible performance in your training sessions. Fats also take long to digest as well. And the same sort of reason with fats. However, what you can do, a little trick you can do, let's say, for example, you are training in 2 hours. This may have been burnt off because it's only 300 calories. This may have already been gone 2 hours before a session. So this is you're probably looking at having this about 1 hour before your training session. And that should be okay. Maybe about 45 minutes, half an hour before your training session. Now, I know for a fact, I've trained a lot of people, and I've talked to a lot of people in the gym. I don't know what it is, and I don't know what the reason is, but people typically struggle to eat before they train. And that struggle, that mental struggle that they have, really impedes the quality of their training sessions. Now, if they can get over this and they can just get some food down their neck and forget about the emotions that come of it, your gut, right? Very complex beast. Billions of good and bad bacteria in your gut. You can train yourself to be comfortable with digesting this type of food before you have a training session. Now, it may just be a case of doing it 3 hours before to start with, then 2.5 hours before, then 2 hours before, then an hour and a half before. So, just back out of this. Just to conclude, gentlemen, the most important meal of the day is fucking not breakfast. The most important meal of the day is your pre-gym meal. And your pre-gym meal should not contain protein. It should not contain fats. And it should only contain a mixture of simple and complex carbohydrates. Now, if your training session is short, like I'm talking 15 minutes long, 20 minutes long, it's a very high intensity sprint or speed session, do you need the complex carbohydrates? You don't need the complex carbohydrates. You just need simple carbohydrates. For example, if you're in a martial arts competition and you are doing 5-minute fights with 45 minutes rest in between, 5-minute fight, 6-minute fight, 5-minute fight, 6-minute fight, whatever it might be. simple carbohydrates are going to be your best bet. You don't need fats, you don't need protein. You should just be having simple carbohydrates before you enter that bout of high intensity. Now, as the time goes on, your requirement for the complex carbohydrates comes into the equation. And then as the time goes on even further, the requirement for fats comes into the equation. For example, you are now a cyclist who is going out 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours plus on the bike. This meal, wherever it is, let's go to pre-gym again. This meal here would then be a lot more, it'd have a lot more fats in, because fats slows down the digestion of the carbohydrates. So that ensures that there's a slow release of carbohydrates for the entirety of that session. However, as the duration, becomes 2, 3 hours plus whatever, you would then require intra, which means during. You would need an intra nutrition plan system in place. So like after 45 minutes, you have something to keep the blood sugar up. Do you know what I mean? So there is a little bit of science, there's a little bit of trial and error that goes with all this stuff. But the point I'm making is that the most important meal of the day is your pre-gym meal, your pre-training session meal. Because let's be honest, most people don't have extremely important, demanding jobs. And if you do, then this changes slightly. If you are required to problem solve and operate this at an extremely high level, what you eat before you do that. So on the longevity program, you can go on to a high performance meal plan. You can go to a weight loss meal plan, or you can go to a weight gain meal plan. High performance is a mixture of high physical performance and high mental performance. Your brain is different. It requires different things than your body. Your body would be very happy with oats and jam. However, your brain to work at an optimized level requires more fats, good fats, omega-3, lots of it, salmon, eggs, stuff like that. And that will not affect your blood sugar levels, and it will keep you at a sustained physical state, however, an optimized mental state. But that just depends on the individual. So if you are that type of individual, then make sure you make them changes to your day. But most people don't have highly demanding physical jobs or highly demanding psychological or mentally challenging jobs. If you do, then fats and proteins are going to serve you extremely well for that. When the shift happens, or when you have one eye on your training session, early afternoon, you need to start thinking about this stuff. Okay, when am I getting my pre-gym meal in? Because it's crucial that you have something in place to ensure that you continue to operate at a high performance throughout the day. Does that make sense? I didn't expect this video to go on for this long, but it's just something that it's crazy that most people believe that breakfast being the most important meal of the day. And I tell you now, it is the least important meal of the day. Because it all comes down to demands and how much demands are on your body and on your mind on a morning. And most people, it's not that much. And you just have to eat in preparation for what you are doing next. And if most of your intensity comes from, let's say, delivering that, doing that meeting, doing that talk on a morning, do you need to prioritize a very high carbohydrate breakfast? Carbohydrates assist with high physical intensity. Fats and protein assist with high mental intensity and psychological brain function and stuff like that. Hopefully you appreciate this video. Bit of a different one. Obviously, I utilised grok just to bring up the a little history lesson in where this slogan came from. But get rid of this. Get rid of this. Get it out of your mind. It doesn't serve you, and it tricks you into a false friggin' carbohydrate cycle of up, down, blood sugar, unproductive eating patterns, and it's very hard to snap out of. The easiest way you snap out of this: poor quality carbohydrates, high sugar in the morning, is just flipping the switch straight away to high fat, high protein in the morning. And by all means, if you are training crazy intense, a bowl of this stuff, if you were doing a sprint session, a bowl of this stuff before a sprint session will probably serve you very well. However, there's not many other scenarios in which it would serve you well, unless it was part of a very well balanced pre-gym meal or pre-cycling meal or a pre-interval session meal. Gentlemen, that's it from me. Hopefully you appreciate this one, using the AI to assist, because, you know, using them to assist for the next couple of years is probably a good shout, because they'll be taking my job probably a few years after that. See you in a bit.